Hello and welcome to Attentive Healthcare Solutions webinar. We're excited to share our next-gen add-on solution, Refund Manager, with you today. My name is Chelsea Grover, and I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator for Attentive. I'd like to take a moment to explain the process for today's presentation. First, I'd like to mention that this webinar will be recorded. Next, for those of you who aren't familiar with Attentive, I wanted to share a bit of who we are with you. We specialize specifically in next-gen healthcare, and our goal in life is to make delighted clients by helping them get the absolute most out of their next-gen software investment. We're passionate about providing solutions for our healthcare provider partners, which in turn help them to improve patient care, enhance the patient experience, and maintain a financially healthy practice. To sum it up, we do everything next-gen. And along with Refund Manager, we have another add-on productivity solution for next-gen, ChartGuard, which creates PDF backups of your patient chart. Next, I wanted to mention an upcoming webinar. On April 25th, we'll be presenting an educational webinar on making next-gen more efficient. In it, we'll showcase some of the reports, programs, scripts, and development that we've created to help with the day-to-day efficiencies, and these tools and reports may benefit your practice as well. I just sent out an invitation to that webinar, so check your inbox for details and registration, or use the questions box to let me know if you didn't receive it, and I'll send it to you. Okay, so back to Refund Manager. At the end of the presentation, we're going to open the floor up to questions from you. We'll answer all the questions at the end, but you can type them in the questions area of the webinar control panel whenever they occur to you. And finally, for audio clarity purposes, everyone's phone will remain muted throughout the entire webinar. If you experience audio issues, please use the chat box to let us know so we can resolve them. And again, questions may be entered in the questions box. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. Tom Seco is Attentive's Business Development Manager, and Joel Schultz is Director of Product Solutions at Attentive. Tom, I'm going to go ahead and pass the webinar off to you. Feel free to get started when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Chelsea. And thank you for everyone for joining our webinar today to learn more about Refund Manager and how it streamlines and automates the credit balance handling and refund check processing within NextGen. What we'll cover today is you'll learn about what is Refund Manager, and throughout the presentation you'll find out why practices buy Refund Manager. You'll learn how it works, and then during the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Joel Schultz, and Joe is going to go through the demonstration of Refund Manager with you. And then we'll come back and we'll give you a brief overview of who Attentive is, and then we'll answer any submitted questions that you have, as Chelsea mentioned. So the purpose of Refund Manager is to make the job easier. And we do this by streamlining and automating the refund process within NextGen. So we look for ways that we could streamline the process in the front end and automate the process on the back end. One of the ways that we automate the process is that we integrate with your accounting application to eliminate data entry of all the refund check information into your accounting application. The overall goal of Refund Manager is to increase productivity. When we went back to our clients who use Refund Manager, and Refund Manager has been in use for about 12 years now, we asked them what the benefits were to them of Refund Manager, and many of them came back and said that they've been able to reallocate the resources in other areas of billing and accounts receivable, and that they've been able to spend less time sending money out of the organization and spend more time bringing money into the organization. When we went back and talked to our clients about Refund Manager, they also had other comments as well. These are some snippets from those comments. I won't go into each one of them, but I will focus your attention on two of them. And the first one I'll focus your attention on is the first bullet that says reduced from days down to hours now. That shows that there's a productivity improvement. And if you look at the fourth bullet, it says pays for itself in time savings alone. That shows that there is a return on investment. There are some risks that are associated with carrying credit balances in your system. Medicare has penalties, insurance contracts, state laws, misstated profits, and fraud. With regards to Medicare, Medicare can suspend Medicare payments if you do not get credits back to them in a timely manner. Third-party insurance contracts usually have clauses in them with regards to getting credits back to them in a timely manner. There are state laws, and it varies from state to state as to how they govern the credit balances that are carried and not returned back to the individuals. In this case, California has a law that says you need to pay interest after 60 days following an overpayment. Oregon says that after 3 years, credit balances are considered unclaimed property and need to be reported back to the Department of State Lands. Other laws vary from state to state. So you need to take a look at your state laws and see what governs your states with regards to credits not being returned to the individuals. Some organizations think credits going unreturned or unclaimed can come back into the organization as either profits or revenue. And just as we talked about with Medicare and with state laws, that's not the case. The potential for fraud increases as well. Over the years, we've talked to many clients and many prospects with regards to credit balances. And some organizations can carry as many as 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 instances of credit balances in their system. And those numbers in terms of dollar amounts can go anywhere from hundreds of thousands of dollars to $800,000, $900,000 worth of credits in the system. And when you're getting into those types of numbers, the potential for some type of unethical behavior occurring increases as well. So managing your credit balances on a regular basis using some type of process, method, or tool allows for you to minimize the risk for such activity to happen. These next few slides I'm going to show you are talking about the refund process itself generally within a practice, and then we'll show you how Refund Manager affects that process. Typically what happens in a practice with regards to credit balances is you can handle them in a reactive manner or a proactive manner. In a reactive manner, a patient calls up and says, I have a credit on my account and I would like to have a refund issued to me. In a proactive manner, you work the credit balances on patient accounts in some process, some method that you have established, whether that's once a week, every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever it is, you have a process in place that lets you manage those credit balances. In either case, whether it's a proactive manner or a reactive manner, you're going to go through a series of steps to identify the credit balance and identify what to do with that credit balance. You're going to look at the encounter details, you're going to look at the transaction details, you're going to look at the account details, and then you're going to determine what made up that credit balance and what you should do with that credit balance, whether you should issue a refund or maybe apply that credit to an account that has an open balance on it. Once you get through that process, and there's 4 steps to that process for every credit that you're going to take a look at, so it can become very labor intensive when you're doing it. If you have 250 credits that you're going to go process, you go through 1,000 steps with that to get through all 250. Once you get through that whole process of identifying which credits are going to be refunds, though those credits need to get over to accounting in order for a refund check to be issued. How that information gets over to accounting varies from organization to organization. It can get over there via word of mouth. It can get over through an email, on a spreadsheet, in a stack of papers that gets dropped on somebody's desk. Somehow it gets over to accounting, and accounting takes a look at it and has to enter that information into the accounting application. So they have to enter in the name of the individual that's going to receive the refund check. They have to enter in their address, their city, the state, the zip. They have to enter in the check amount. So there's a lot of data entry that goes on with entering the refund information into the accounting application. Then they have to print the refund checks, and they have to make sure that the check paper is in a printer and the checks are printing out properly. And once all the checks are printed, some organizations enter that information, that check information, back into NextGen. Other organizations do not. If you're entering it back into NextGen, you have to go back into NextGen, and then you have to find the patient account and enter in the check number, check date, check amount into NextGen there. So if you look at the whole process from start to finish, and you really analyze it, it is a very task-intensive, can be a time-intensive process. So we looked at that whole process as an organization and looked where we could apply technology to the process to make it more efficient and more productive for the individuals doing the credit balance, the handling of credit balances and issuing of refund checks. So we were able to find ways to make it easy to find the credit balances on patient accounts by creating filters and search mechanisms that make it much easier. And then in the way that we present the information to the billers to decide what to do with that credit balance, whether to issue a refund or to apply that credit to an account that has an open balance on it, or now even to task it out for further research. We use technology to improve that process or streamline that process. We looked at how we could get the information over to accounting in a more efficient manner, and we found that we could create a file and be able to get that information into the accounting application by integrating with the accounting applications, thus eliminating the points of data entry and making it automatic, basically, to feed that information into accounting. Now the accountant just has to make sure that there is check paper in the printer and that the checks are printing out properly. Then on the back end, we were able to automate the process in bringing that check information, check number, check date, check amount, and be able to update the patient chart with that information. So it eliminated data entry along that way as well. So we streamlined the front end on the billing process, and we automated the back end with accounting and with bringing that information back into NextGen. And you'll see how this works in the demonstration when I turn it over to Joe. There are 3 modules that make up Refund Manager, and you'll see these 3 modules in the demonstration. The Credit Scout module is the module that is used by the individuals who are looking for credit balances on the patient accounts and being able to take action on those credit balances, whether to issue a refund or to apply that credit to an account that has an open balance on it, or to task it out to the work log manager within NextGen so that you can do further research on it. The Batch Detective module is the module that will bring the refund information over to the accounting application so that the checks can be printed. And the Importer module is the last module that you'll see in the demonstration, and that is the module that brings the printed check information, the check number, the check date, the check amount, brings that over into NextGen and updates the patient chart. So to basically sum it up, what Refund Manager does is overall is it's able to reduce the time and labor for issuing refunds. You are able to apply the credit balances to other encounters that have open balances on them very quickly. You're able to task it out for further research, for further review. As I mentioned, we do integrate with many of the accounting applications in the market, and by doing this, we're able to reduce the amount of data entry and the amount of errors as well that go along with data entry. You'll see also in the demonstration that Refund Manager documents itself along the way. So it creates these notes so you can see what activity is happening throughout the whole process. As I mentioned, it does import the check numbers into the NextGen application. And the benefit of this is the front office, the front desk staff, if they get a call from a patient and says, hey, I have requested a refund check to be issued to me, the front desk can take a look at that patient's chart and be able to see from the notes that were created if that check was generated and where that check was sent to, rather than have to send the check to the back office and let them field the call. Refund Manager is multi-practice aware, so for the practices that have multiple practices set up in NextGen, you are able to take a look at the guarantor's financial picture across all of the practices rather than just one of the practices. And so those are some of the benefits of a Refund Manager. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and Joe's going to take you through a demonstration of Refund Manager now.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We're going to switch screens here, and then we'll do the presentation. Okay, if things are working fine, you should be seeing NextGen Practice Management up here. If not, just message us in either the chat or the questions box and let us know. As Chelsea mentioned, if any questions come to mind, feel free to put them into the question box in the control panel for the webinar, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. Tom mentioned we created Refund Manager about 12 years ago, 12 and a half years, almost 13 years ago now. So it's been quite a while that we've been helping NextGen sites issue refunds more productively. And if you haven't used Refund Manager, you probably hate doing refunds. It's a slow process, somewhat painful. It's spending time sending money out of the practice. So what I'm going to do in the next 20 minutes or so is take you through a quick tour of how Refund Manager works. When we install Refund Manager, we go ahead and plug it into your NextGen Practice Management add-on menu. So when people use NextGen Practice Management, if they have the right security, they'll be able to see this and go ahead and launch it. Again, not everyone will have access to it, which is generally a good thing with refunds when you're sending money out of the practice. When it launches, it gets the current context that you're in from NextGen. So it'll know what practice you're in. We can see that along the top of Refund Manager here. It'll look and see what database you're in and what your user ID is. And that'll help Refund Manager do the work on your behalf. So in NextGen, it looks just like you did the work, except it's happening much faster than if you had to do this manually. We talked about the 3 modules in Refund Manager, and we're going to cover those in the demo here today. So the first one is the Credit Scout. And that's where you spend a lot of your time in NextGen looking at credit balances and deciding, do I want to refund these? Do I want to move them around? Or do I just want to put them in the work log right now to be taken care of at a later time? So we're going to cover this Credit Scout first. And then the next step after we get our credits processed, we're going to move them along, and we're going to have some of them that turn into refunds, and we need to get those over to accounting so they can print checks. And that's what the Batch Detective does, the second icon here. So that'll take care of exporting the checks and vendors out to the accounting system, and that'll either be a direct interface like we're going to use today with QuickBooks, or it can be a file-based interface where you have to, export out a file, and then the accounting system simply imports that file. So again, it saves you tons of typing either way on the accounting side. And then we're going to close the loop by doing the import at the end. We had that kind of third column, and if you think about the flow chart Tom showed, where we bring in the check information and we update the transactions with that, so you have that documented in NextGen. So we're going to do that as kind of our closing step in today's demo. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the Credit Scout, and a lot of these screens we have here in Refund Manager work very similar to what you're used to in NextGen. The top part is your search criteria, the bottom part is a results grid. You use the right mouse button and little pop-up menus, just like you do in NextGen. So we make the transition from using NextGen Practice Management to Refund Manager really straightforward. There's a number of criteria along the top to help you find refunds. So if you're looking for a specific refund, in the upper left here, we can find that by the name of the patient or guarantor. We can enter in a string of account numbers or encounter numbers for it to go look up and bring up those specific ones that we know we want to refund. We have a number of clients who have a process going on where they're tracking the ones they want to refund, and someone gets a list of account numbers or encounter numbers, and they just go ahead and plug those in, and it brings it up, and then you click some check boxes like I'll show you, and it makes the refunds for you. We have other clients who work with date ranges of refunds. So they're always keeping kind of a rolling window that's maybe from 60 days back to 120 days back. And those are the ones they're concentrating on working the credits, right? Because it's 60 days back so that, you've had all your insurances come in and your balances move around. And then, hopefully anything older than 90 or 120 days you've already taken care of, though, every now and then you go and scan those ones too. But the reason for the date range is why make Refund Manager bring back 12,000 results when you're not going to sit there, right, and go through all 12,000 of them at once. So let's just bring back a little slice of those based on date. To help qualify your credit balances, we have a number of different filters. The top set is based on the balances and the charges, and the bottom set is based on the actual payments. So that'll help you determine if it's truly a credit or if it's just adjustments gone wild, right? And you have too many adjustments out there and it's creating a credit. So you don't really want to refund that. You want to fix that. So we want to give you the ones that are the best candidates for refunds. And as part of your training, we'll go through and take you through what each of those mean and what they do. So we can search for credits due to the insurance, the patient. Tom mentioned Refund Manager is multi-practice aware. If you're single practice, Refund Manager has huge productivity savings. If you have a couple practices or even more, we can give you a view of the guarantor across practices. And then we have other drop-down lists to help slice up if you have a central business office and people work different providers or different locations or different financial classes, you can include that as part of the search criteria to get to the results that you care about when you're using Refund Manager. Also, we have an option in here that if there's an appointment coming up within the next so many days, you can have that omitted from the ones to refund. Because if there's an appointment coming up, you may want to hold on to that credit balance because maybe you can apply it as a copay on the new visit. So you can set that number of days and it'll go ahead and remember that, and that'll eliminate it. But the whole key here is we're giving you criteria to bring up a list of credit balances that you're going to work through to decide if you're going to refund it, if you're going to task it, or if you're going to move it around, what we call distribute it. So I'm going to cover a couple of these sample patients that we've set up, and we're going to do the refunds first. What we're seeing in this grid here is an overview of the guarantors. So if we look at Bob Cross down here, we can see that there's credits in 2 practices. We had mentioned that Refund Manager is multi-practice aware, so I want to show you this and then we'll get on to the single practice stuff. But for those of you who have a practice in a surgery center or multiple practices under management, so we can go ahead and look at Bob and go, okay, yeah, Bob has credits in 2 practices. If we want, we can go ahead and get a screen that mimics the NextGen financial summary, but it's aware of both practices. So it'll give you that financial summary for each of the practices that guarantor is in. In fact, it'll also show you if there are dependents in each of the practices. So it's a powerful tool if you are moving things around cross practices or looking at an overall financial picture, right? We have a credit in one, we owe money in another. Maybe we want to contact the patient and see if we can get permission to move that balance, or maybe it was a deposit in the practice that we're going to use later in the surgery center. So we can go ahead and handle that cross-practice scenario too in Refund Manager. But let's spend the majority of the time covering the common case, which is we're in a single practice, we have credits, what do we want to do? So I'm going to go down here to Tiffany, and as I scroll across, I can see there's $92 of credit under the payers, under the insurances. So we can go ahead and click to the left here and we can expand it down. And we can see, yeah, this is our practice and account. If we want, we can go ahead and turn on headers so we know what each of these columns are. Once clients get going, they recognize the data, so they turn the headers off, and it normally looks a little bit cleaner without the headers. We can see there's two insurances that have credits out there. So we have Aetna with $58 and United Health with $34.22. If we want more detail, we can go down to the encounter level and even to the charge with the credits. So if you only wanted to refund one of several charges, you could pick that one. If I need a little more detail about this particular encounter, I can click on the encounter number and it'll come up with a screen that's very similar to the transaction screen in the chart. That'll have the charges and the payments and kind of give you a brief overview. If you need more information, there's that screen that mimics the financial summary. There's also a screen that mimics the account summary. Okay, so you can go ahead and pull this up and expand it out just like you do in NextGen. So we're trying to give you tools in Refund Manager so that in most cases you don't have to flip back into NextGen to do that research. We're giving that to you right in Refund Manager. So let's say we looked at this one and we decided they overpaid. We want to go ahead and do the refund. Well, rather than going in and creating the transactions in NextGen, we're just going to click the refund checkbox. Okay, and it's going to go ahead and do this work for us. For these two charges here, it's going to go ahead and do those refunds. Now, if we just wanted to do the Aetna one, we could uncheck the United Health checkboxes. But for our demo today, let's go ahead and have the computer do a little more work and pick up several of them. So normally you're just kind of working down this list. I'm going to skip down here to the end just for the sake of time. And here's a case where we have a refund going to the guarantor. Now, how do we know where it's going? We look at what bucket the credit is in on the charge, and then we match it back up to whoever owns that bucket. So if Aetna is COB1, it'll go to Aetna. If it's on the guarantor and is the patient amount essentially, if it's on the patient amount, then it'll go to the guarantor. And in this case, it's Jennifer that would get that refund. So we have several encounters here with credits on them. Again, if we want to expand down to the charge level, we can to see each of them. If we want to click on any one to see the particular payments, we can do that. And we can see, yeah, there's a big overpayment here. Maybe we had them put down a deposit. And we can do that and review each one. And then again, if we come to the conclusion that we want to go ahead and refund these 3 encounters, we simply click the checkbox, and in a few minutes, we'll tell Refund Manager to go ahead and do all the work for us. Okay, so we got a couple queued up for refunds. I'm gonna pick one more just so we have some additional data to send out. What do distributions look like? Distributions are when we move credits from charges where money's owed to other charges, potentially on other encounters and maybe even in other practices, to where we have credits. So it's matching the credits with the debits. So let's go ahead and look at Oscar here, and we'll see there's a $295 credit. And there's an actual filter up here that we can use if we want to get just the distributions. Normally we'd go ahead and do that, but again, for the sake of time, let's assume we already did the research, we went into those screens that I showed you, and we decide we want to do the distribution. Now, what does the distribution look like? Well, there's a default mode and a manual mode. The default mode of doing distributions is it'll work oldest to newest until it runs out of money. And then the matching allows you to pick how things are going to be handled. So in this case, we have our credit over here on the left at $295. On the right, we have a couple spots where money's owed. So we can take that $295 and apply it to one of them. And then we can go ahead and you'll see the balance got reduced from $295 down to $59. And then we can apply it to the other one. So we've reduced the balances over here to about $8 left. Okay, and Refund Manager is going to create these transactions for us, moving the money from the from to the to side of the equation. And we'll show you what that looks like in NextGen shortly. And then let's go ahead and pick another one. And I'm going to pick this one for distribution. And again, this one is just a straight match. There's 1 and 1. So we could even skip this screen if we wanted to and just let it do the oldest to newest. And because there's only one, it's going to take care of that for us. So we have several patients in here that are getting refunds. We have several patients where money's getting moved around. If you think about going through NextGen and doing that work and creating all that transaction, all those transactions to make that happen, really in Refund Manager, we're going to let you do that with a couple of mouse clicks. So we're going to right mouse when we're ready, process selected items. It's going to give us a summary of what it's going to do up here at the charge level. So we got like 6 charges that we're going to do refunds on and a couple that we're doing distributions on. Down here, when we create the transactions for the refunds, these are going to be the transaction codes it uses by default. And these are your actual NextGen transaction codes. So it pulls them right in. There's no additional setup for that in Refund Manager other than telling it it can use it. And then for the distributions, we have up to 3 codes. The first one is for a normal distribution within a practice, and the next 2 are for moving money between practices. Refund Manager also can look at your NextGen batches that are out there, and these are batches that have already been set up for the demonstration. We can create a new batch from here if we want, or get a list of other batches that are available in NextGen that we're eligible to use. This screen you don't have to come back to until you either post the batch or delete the batch, but as long as the batch is still there and open and you have access to it, you can keep coming into Refund Manager and adding transactions to it. We have some clients that leave their refund batches open all week. We have other clients that close them daily. So it's really up to you and what your best practice is within your team. So now, instead of doing the work manually to create all those transactions, we're going to let Refund Manager do it for us. We're going to click yes, go ahead and create those 6 refunds, and boom, just like that, it's done. We're going to move that money. It's going to show us, again, a summary. Everything on the left of the mouse is where it's coming from. So what practice, person, encounter, sim, the amount it's going to subtract from the credit, and then on the right where it's going to. Okay, it can move them between charges on the same encounter or cross encounters, and like I said, even cross practice if you're multi-practice. So we'll click continue, and it's going to do all that work for us. So with just several mouse clicks, we now saved ourselves a lot of bouncing around between different screens in NextGen, looking up patients, creating transactions, so on and so forth. So what does this look like in NextGen? Well, let's go back over here and let's pull up our batch that we were looking at. And I'm going to go ahead and let's balance it out, and then we're going to post it. By the way, here's all that work that was done for us. The zeros are just because we moved a positive and negative of the same amount. So, and I'll show you what those look like in just a moment here. So we'll get that balanced, we'll get that posted, and then we'll go in and we'll look at a distribution first, and then we'll go in and we'll look at a refund, and then we'll take those refunds and we'll put them into the accounting system. We'll print the checks to a file so we get check numbers, and then we'll pull that check information back and show you just how quick that is. All right, so down at the bottom here, we have our distributions. So I'm going to take account 290, and we can see our different transactions for moving the money around, the 236 and the 59. If we want, we can even go into the encounters, and it'll create notes letting you know what happened. Okay, so we're on encounter 1215. It's letting us know that it got $59 from encounter 1213. All right, so Tom mentioned the documentation happens for you somewhat automatically as you go through and do your refunds. So let's go ahead and look at a refund now too. Okay, and this is Tiffany. So we'll see the transaction in there that we did for the refund insurance. There's an initial note created by Refund Manager. All right, letting you know who it was to and who did the work for it, documenting that. So how do we get these refunds now from NextGen into the accounting system? Well, we have some clients who print a report, others maintain a spreadsheet that gets sent over, and then accounting has to data enter that all in. Well, using the interfaces that Refund Manager has to about a dozen different accounting systems, we can go ahead and create a file. I had created this batch a while ago. I keep reusing it for the demo. We can either create a file or talk directly to the accounting system. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that one that I just created. I'm going to right mouse and do an export. It's going to show me the checks it's going to send out. All it's showing us down here is for Jennifer. It has the option to consolidate those 3 encounters into one check. Some accounting systems will do that for you. In the case of QuickBooks, it doesn't always do a good job, so we do that ahead of time in Refund Manager. So now these vendors and these payments, rather than typing that all into the accounting system, we go ahead and click export, and it is pushing all that into the accounting system. So it just finished moving that over. So now if we go into our QuickBooks, we'll see that we have these checks out here. Here's the one for Jennifer that had the 3 encounters and a couple of the other ones. And we'll notice we have no check numbers yet. So accounting, they love this because instead of spending their time doing data entry, they're just reviewing the transactions and printing the batch of checks. So I'm just going to print them to paper here, or actually to a file so we don't waste paper. We get our check numbers, we handle reprints just like we would today in the accounting system. So now we have check numbers assigned to these. So that's great, that's in the accounting system, but how do we let the people in NextGen know that that's been taken care of? Well, using Refund Manager, and again, this can be the same day or a week later, we can go in, find our exports that we've done to the accounting system, and tell it to go grab those check numbers for us. So we don't have to type that in to NextGen. So again, on the NextGen side, we're saving you that data entry also. So now if we go back over here to NextGen, and let's go back into okay, I first want to show you the second note that got created. So we had the created note when Refund Manager created the transaction, and when we exported it out, it created another note, so at least got that far. And then on the transaction itself, we've added the check number, check date, and check amount. So all that's taken care of for you in Refund Manager without you having to do that data entry. And again, if this was a accounting system where we needed to use a file, instead of talking directly, we'd prompt you to save the file. Accounting would import it in, they'd export out a report, and Refund Manager would pull in that report, and you'd end up with the same result here. So as promised, that's a quick tour of how Refund Manager works and where the main productivity points are. What I'd like to do is turn it back over to Tom for a little bit to cover a few more slides, and then we'll go ahead and jump into your questions. Thank you again for your time. We appreciate it. And Tom, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Just switch it over the screen back over to me. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen again now. People generally ask us what it takes to implement Refund Manager. And it takes about 90 minutes to physically install the software in your environment. We do provide, we've created 4 training videos. They're about 10 to 11 minutes in length each. And then we also provide the Refund Manager user guide as well. So we ask you to go through the training videos and read through the user guide. Once you've completed that, what we'll do then is schedule a question and answer call with one of our Refund Manager specialists to answer any questions that you might have from what you saw in the videos and what you read in the user guide. And once we get through that process, then what we'll do is schedule time with you to train you on Refund Manager in your test environment. And once you feel comfortable with Refund Manager in your test environment, then what we'll do is point the refund manager over to your production environment and be on the phone with you through the first few batches of processing credits in your production environment, making sure that we're there to answer any questions that come up during that process of working the credits in production. A little bit about Itentiv and who we are. For those of you who do not know who we are, we were founded in 2003, and our mission is to create additional value for your next-gen investment. We know that when you purchase next-gen, it was a major purchase, and probably over the years that investment has grown through upgrades and through probably adding additional hardware. So we will work with you to get as much value out of that investment as possible. We have 19 plus years of experience with next-gen, and we have 77 employees, most of which are consultants that travel from practice to practice, health center to health center, working with the organization to get that value out of next-gen, either through improving business processes, workflows, through improving reporting, get as much value out of next-gen as possible. If you take the 2003 and the 19 years, they do not add up, and the reason for that is Itentiv started out as the IT department for a medical organization. And back in the late 90s and early 2000s, when the business mantra back then was to focus on what you do best and outsource the rest, the medical organization was going to outsource the IT group. And the leaders of the IT group said, well, if you want to do that, what we'd like to do is form our own company and provide services back to you. So they agreed to do that. And from that point forward, we have worked with over 350 to 400 clients that use NextGen. And during this time frame, we have become a strategic partner with NextGen as well. We do provide implementations. We can do implementations of NextGen. As I mentioned, we have consultants that work with organizations to improve workflows, improve business processes. We do have a group of technology programming folks who can enhance the templates within NextGen. We can also provide upgrades to NextGen and provide support as well. We have a group of technology folks that can provide IT managed services, meaning that we can manage your desktops, your laptops, your local area networks, your network infrastructure, your printers, things like that. And we also have our own data center, so we can host clients in our data center as well. And then we have a group of programmers that develop productivity tools, of which Refund Manager was the one we saw today. We also developed a product called ChartGuard, which is a business continuity solution. And basically what that does at the high level is it goes out every night, it runs every night, goes out to the appointment book listing and looks at all the patients that are coming into the office, your office locations the next day. It generates the charts for those patients, puts it into basically a PDF file, and then pushes it out to a PC at that particular office location where that patient is going to be seen. So it's there locally just in case that office, if it loses access to NextGen, your providers and staff lose access to NextGen, they can go to that PC and take a look at the patient chart there and be able to continue to see their patients while the IT group is trying to get NextGen back online. Refund Manager, which we saw today, ChartGuard Archiver is another tool that's mainly used for long-term storage and archiving of patient charts. We've developed an interface to Phreesia that allows, in addition to the typical Phreesia implementation, we also allow the updating of clinical information into NextGen from the Phreesia tablet. And then we have developed an interface with Transworld Systems that allows you to lower the cost of collections as well. So now we're available to take any questions that you have. As Chelsea mentioned, if you have a question, go ahead and enter the question in the questions box there, and we can answer any questions for you.
Hey, Tom, I have one here, and I'll go ahead and answer it since it's a technical question. Someone asked, does it run in a terminal server or Citrix environment? Yes, it does. Refund Manager was written from the ground up using Microsoft technologies, just like NextGen. So again, similar to NextGen, it'll run on your terminal servers, your Citrix environment, or it can run on your PCs. We have clients doing one or the other. We have some clients doing both. So Refund Manager will support you either way. Okay, another one is, how do you keep it current with NextGen, or do you keep it current with NextGen? And the answer to that is, after nearly 13 years of Refund Manager, yes, we do keep it current with NextGen. Is part of your support for Refund Manager, we certify it when NextGen rolls out a new version, and we make sure that it works, and we'll be partners with you if you want to load Refund Manager into your test environment. So if you're moving from 5.8 UD3 to 5.9, you're welcome to go ahead and load up Refund Manager as part of your testing platform. And if you have any questions, just open a support ticket with us and we'll help you out with that too. We find that many of our clients keep using Refund Manager. It's one of the great things about Refund Manager. It's such a great productivity enhancement that once someone buys it, as long as they're still using NextGen, they're still using Refund Manager. So it's really been a great testimony to the product itself. Okay, Tom, here's a question. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
There's a question that came up. We use Great Plains accounting software. Does it integrate with Great Plains?
Yes, it does. We've been integrating with Great Plains for about 10 years now. We use Great Plains eConnect middleware. That's a piece of software on your installation media for Great Plains that allows third-party applications such as Refund Manager to talk to it and create vendors and payments. So that one will work very much like you just saw with QuickBooks, where everything kind of happens behind the scenes. You don't have to move files around or such, and that one is, got a lot of maturity in that interface because it's been around a long time. Okay, I had one more question about what does the install and training process look like. Tom had covered that briefly in one of the slides, but again, to reiterate, what we'll do is we'll do a kickoff call. We'll have all the stakeholders on there, your accounting people, your NextGen people, your IT people, and we'll assign out the various parts that need to be covered. In the meantime, we'll send you the training videos and user guide, and those training videos take less than an hour to watch. And we're not asking you to memorize everything, because what we'll do is once we've got Refund Manager set up in your test environment with your technical folks, and we've got the accounting integration done with your accounting folks, then we'll go ahead and do a Q&A call that normally lasts about 60 to 90 minutes. The great thing about Refund Manager is we can deploy it as fast or as slow as your organization permits based on other priorities.
Okay, that's all the questions that I see, Joe.
Yep, I think we're good. Again, thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right, thank you for joining the webinar today, and have a great afternoon.